Hello, my friends. John LaRufi here with another Straight Up Solo. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the top 10 really long games to set up, but that are still worth your time in playing. And I'm talking about games that you look at over the shelf and you say, man, I really want to play the game, but oh gosh, I don't feel like setting it up right now. Or it has 37 steps, or you got to put intricate little pieces here and there that like to dump over and stuff like that. Tedious setups, time-consuming setups, 37 steps worth of setups, that kind of game. And I have these games in my collection because I love playing them. But I'm telling you, some of these games I haven't played in a while because there's just such a heavy setup. So anyway, I want to just put it out there for two reasons. Like, number one, I did a video about short setups a little while ago, and it was really helpful for a lot of people because these are great solo games you can set up. You know, some of them were in a couple of minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. These will not be that way. In fact, the last one I'll talk about probably takes you 25 minutes to set up. All right, maybe even longer. And actually, the cream of the crop, I mean, it just depends on how long you work on it. I mean, the last one's probably more like close to an hour, but it's worth it. All right, so anyway, let's go ahead and get started. And as usual, folks, if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Been really trying to grow it over the last couple of years, and your subscription and your help gives you the support I need. So, all right, let's kind of dabble into the first one. This one it's a little bit time consuming, but it's tedious setup. And that's because you have to put like 30 different pieces on your player board and then also the player board of the Automa. And that is Men Nefer. I love Men Nefer. It's a great game, awesome, just sweet, fun Euro game. But if you look at the back of this, you can see just how many pieces kind of can go all over the board and everything else. I mean, there's just a lot of tedium in this setup, but it's always worth it. I love playing this game, but it's not going to be one where you're going to be able to set it up in under, it probably takes about 10, 15 minutes. Not that long, but it's just tedious because a lot of little pieces and a lot of little spots and everything else. So that's annoying. I wish it was a little faster, but it's worth it. All right, next one. I forgot how long the setup took on this one. It's one of my all-time favorite games, but just setting it up actually inspired me to do this video, okay? And it is it's one of those where you just have to follow a lot of steps. You have to unpack a lot of things, and you've got to put a lot of little pieces out on the board in meticulous ways, and that is Sinore. Now, I'm telling you right now, Sinore is one of my all-time favorite games. It is a superb Euro. It's always worth it. But there have been definite times in the last couple of weeks where I've wanted to play it and just didn't have what it took to get it set up. So I know that falls in there. But when I do set it up, I'm always like overjoyed with the fun that I have. So a lot of times I literally have to set that one up and then go do something else and come back to it later because I'm so exhausted by the time I leaf through everything. The good news is in that one is after you've done it once or twice, you can kind of memorize what you're doing, and that definitely helps. But just having to like look up and see, okay, how many workers and how many this and that, and how do I do this? And there's just a lot of placement. It really is just a lot of placement. It's one of those that has like 37 steps to do. All right, so that one, well worth it, but takes some time. Now, this next one here is a game I thoroughly enjoy playing. I really like it. But the setup, I always have to go through the rules and follow it step by step because I don't play it frequently enough, but it does take a lot of time. There's a lot of stuff to get out. There's a lot of things to like put in a bag and draw and place different places, etc., etc. And that takes some doing. And this one is Mosaic. So Mosaic, Story of Civilization, really fun game. But you know, any of these games like this, I'm going to spin it around here without dropping it. Any of these games like this, when you have a world map of hexes and everything else, and a ton of tiles have to go on all those little hexes, you got all sorts of things and all sorts of pieces, that's going to take some doing, and you're just going to have to, well, at least I have to come back to it all the time when the rule book can go step by step, and that's what takes a long time. But it's worth playing. I really like it. I think it's a fun solo game. I think it's probably just as good multiplayer, but I've never had a chance to play it that way. But definitely worth the time. Again, look at it, think, I don't know if I could do that tonight. And I go grab something else sometimes. But that one is good. All right. Now, here's one that's one of the to me it's like the cream of the crop, upper echelon of awesome games. Okay, when it comes to a Euro, this one has it's this one's more than a Euro game. I think this one's more thematic. It's got more elements, got deck building, it's got building placement, it's got all sorts of great things. But this one again takes a ton of time to get to the table. Just be able to play it at least 20 minutes, I think, is this setup. And that's the Great Western Trail, New Zealand. And why does it take so long? Well, with New Zealand in particular, you've got a separate board that you have to populate. You've got separate decks of cards that need different things. Each of the decks of cards have to be configured in such a way because there's some modulation in the game or modular setup. Great game, but there's just so much to put together. I mean, you could be 20 minutes is probably as fast as I've ever done it. It could be 30 minutes if you're reviewing the rule book and everything else, but well worth it. Very fun to play solo. But after I finished it, I'm like, I better play this game again. In fact, almost every single one of these, I'm saying to myself, I better play this game again because the setup was so long that I know that I want to do it again and enjoy it instead of having to completely take it down and put it back apart. Now, there is one exception to that, and that's the next one I'm about to play or about to show you. And this one stands in the way of many of these kinds of games, and that is Red Dust Rebellion. So any coin game you're going to play is going to have tons and tons of meticulous setup. This doesn't take too long, but it is a kind of a drag. Just in order to set up any of the coin games, you have to go space by space, territory by territory, and put in individual chits, individual units, individual power, influence places. Where are they leaning as far as the factions? It is a chore to go through that, but it's a great experience. However, I've never played two games of any coin back to back because they are so long that I feel like once I'm done playing them for a little while. But I do really enjoy them. They're great. But you got to have a lot of time in your hands to master, to play, to enjoy, to experience coins. So that's not going to surprise anybody who's watching this list, I'm sure. All right. Next, this is an oldie but goodie. And this one isn't so bad unless you're like me where you have a lot of content for it and a lot of expansions for it. When you play it, you go big into a lot of the components and a lot of the gameplay and everything else. And that would be Eldritch Horror. Eldritch Horror by itself, the base game's not too bad. It really isn't. Just get stuff out of the box, put it together. Even the back, it doesn't really look like it's all that much stuff, right? But when you have a collection of Eldritch Horror that spans, 4 or 5 boxes, and that collection's all spread out, that can take some serious doing. It's a great game. I've always liked the Eldritch Horror games. I like the Arkham Horror games. I know people arm wrestle about which is the best version or not. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm just talking about no matter what you're playing, if you've got a lot of expansions for them, they're worth your time and effort for sure. Very, very thematic, very, I think they're very immersive experience. I love playing them, but they take some time, and you got to have a big table, and you got to spread it all out, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I made the mistake once of teaching somebody how to play one of those games. I really wanted to play it, and I didn't want to play it solo. And man, I think they were so overwhelmed after they looked at it. I should have known, you know what? Perhaps we should play something different. But nope, I pressed on, and well, they got a full experience. Anyway, tons and tons of fun, tons and tons of components when you add it all in there. All right, now I saved these last 4 for last. Because they have a combination of tons of components and tedium, but they are totally worth it. And the first one's not too bad, but it as far as time, but there is, depending on the scenario and what you're doing, there's a lot of customization that you've got to figure out. And that is Frostpunk, the board game. And just look at how big this box is, right? So when you look at the back of this box, you see kind of a sprawling table hog for sure. Okay, definitely. But this thing is thick. There's a lot here. There's a lot of cards. There's a lot of components. There's a lot of tiles you do and don't use depending on the game you're playing in the scenario. You got to do a lot of that effort to put it together. It's definitely worth it. It's a very hard game. I've never won it, but I enjoy playing it because it is so thematic. It does feel to me like everything you do just kind of makes sense and it pours itself into the theme, and I love that. And that's why playing it is really fun. But you gotta spend the time to invest into putting it all out on the table and getting it all right and getting it all prepared. With depending on the scenario, it is a doozy. All right, the next one. This is probably the one I have played the least because of the setup time, and I still like it, but I haven't played it in a long time. I must have relearned this game 5 times, honestly, because I do like it. I do enjoy playing it, but it takes so much to set up, so much to put out. It's a heavy lift, and of course, I have more expansions, which make it even tougher to figure out. This thing is such a huge box. I'm talking about Anachrony and the Infinity Box. This thing is so big. There's so much componentry in here. In the back you don't see anything, so I don't think you can see. Yeah, you don't really see anything. This thing is probably 15 pounds of game at least. It's huge. There's so much in here, but it is worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's a fun game. It's a fun game to play when you have extra content. The new bot in there is great. The idea of the game is really cool. I like that idea. It's not an overly complicated game, but there's just so much, there's so much componentry to it that it takes a ton of time to get out. And when you have like some of the 3D models and stuff that I've purchased, it's a table hog. It's a time sink, but it's worth it. It's just big. All right. Now, my last two, my last one's one of my favorite games of all time, period. My second to last one, pardon me. The other one is also a really good game, but I'll tell you one of my favorite all-time games. And this one has the most lengthy and tedious setup that I know of in a game of this type. But I simply love it. I think the design is almost flawless from a solo standpoint. And I highly recommend, if you've never tried it and you're a solo gamer, you find somewhere where you can try it. But you're talking about easily 30 to 40 minutes to put this thing on the table. And that's Voidfall. Voidfall, which, yeah, you can see in the back here. Let me flip this over. I just don't want all this stuff to dump everywhere. Voidfall itself has one heck of a table presence, right? You can see over here, lots of ships, your player board, over here, the whole thing. There is a huge sprawling map, depending on your scenario. There are 12 different races to choose from. There's different techs. There's different, you have to put the galaxy or the solar system, what do you want to call it, together. It takes forever, but it's worth it. But it takes forever. And this is a game where I don't think I've ever set it all up and played it right away. It's like, okay, I'm done. I've set it up. I'll see you tomorrow. So long, Voidfall. I know we're going to have fun. But tonight, I am just exhausted. So good. So fun to play. So rewarding. Especially if you can pull off a win. But man, does it take some doing. All right, and my final one. The creme de la creme. The ultimate in table hog, meticulous and obnoxious setup, but well worth the whole experience, even though it's a very long game, and it won't be for everybody. But I couldn't pass this up without talking about Mr. President. Now, this game is a solid hour to put on the table. I think it is. They don't even show it to you all in the back. They just don't. They just show you like this zoomed up piece. You're talking about probably a 4 foot by 5 foot table completely full of content. And not only is it completely full, but a lot of that is a map or tracks or things that have levels that you have to put on. You have to put units there. You have to put strength. You have to put different kinds of leans and influence and where things are. And then you have to do the same thing with your political side of things. And oh my gosh. I mean, it's amazing with all that's going on that it has actually made it to publication. But it is a phenomenal experience. It really, really is. And the only reason I haven't played it again, and I've been waiting for the second edition. When I first got it, I played it a couple times, really enjoyed it. But I did find that once you got past a specific point in the game, if you could get to that point, it was like you basically had the game won at that time. Because things were going so well for you, you could keep on doing well. If you couldn't get to that point, it would just crash, right? You could definitely have a real problem there. So I know that the second edition addresses some of that. I'm really looking forward to getting the upgrade. I don't know when I put in the order a year and a half ago. I never dreamed it was going to take so long. But it is a fantastic game, but one that probably requires at least 12 hours to play through a 4-year campaign. I'm thinking 3 hours per turn, maybe a little less. Maybe if you're really moving, you can get it down to 2 hours. I shouldn't say 2 hours per year. 8 hours, I got to imagine, is the minimum time. You know everything you're doing. But there's just so much there. And the setup is absolutely like that. You have to literally reference every square inch of that table to figure out where things go, how things set up, how you put things out on the board, what's the initial configuration, everything. Crazy, but worth it. So all of these games that I presented here have been in my collection for some of them over a decade, right? That's to me is the testament to show that I think they're absolutely worth the effort, but they are an effort. There's no doubt about it. I may have missed some games. I'm sure there's plenty out there that are also really, really long. But these are the ones in the collection I thought that really stuck out, that really give me pause. Like, I just don't know if I can get into that right now. I just don't know if I have time to set up that right now. Or I do want to play it, but when I'm done with it, I'm going to have to go and, wipe my brow and I'll come back later. Or I got to wait till the weekend because I just don't have time to get that onto the table. And then when I do get into the table, I'm going to be too tired to play it. So anyway, I really hope you enjoy this list. Ironically speaking, I am going to probably bust out or put down Anachrony right now because I want to play it. And I'm just going to clear these games off and get going. I'll set it up and probably go do something else for a little while and then come back to it. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the support for so many years. It's awesome. And I love making these videos for you, and I love your comments. So please keep commenting on, and we'll continue to explore this hobby together. Take it easy, everybody.